All right, we're good.
We're recording?
Yep.
All right. Hey, guys. Welcome to a special episode of Jaygeons and Dragclarks. This is a special lost episode for episode 9, session 5 for Horde of the Dragon Queen. I'm Cory, obviously, the DM for Horde of the Dragon Queen, and with me today is Mike, or Toni Lowshot Pobar.
Hello.
How's it going, Mike?
Oh, another fun-filled day.
All right, so for session 9, we wound up having some audio issues where the entire session recorded the video, but no audio. So we wound up not uploading that one, and we decided that we would circle back when we got a chance to do this sort of recap episode. So basically the way that the episode started out was I went over again all of the information that Lucien had given the party at the Dragon Hatchery, because Leovin wasn't with us, so I kind of gave that for Leovin's benefit, and then Lucien then asked you guys to return to the Raider camp for money to figure out what they're doing and where they're going, and then to give him that information. He's going to leave Greenest and head west to Elturel, which is a city to, I believe it's the north or west. It's one of the two from Greenest. It's
Why not both?
It's to the north. So it's to the north, and then you guys went west. Okay. So yeah, Elturel is to the north of Greenest, and that's where Lucien headed to meet up with Anti-Strahd, an ally in the essentially secret war right now between the Cult of the Dragon and those who are aware of their activities, which are very few people. So the party accepts the quest after Hagrid convinces Lucien to give them a little more money for it, and then they head back to the Raider camp, which was completely deserted. Well, not completely.
A little is like 5 times what he initially offered.
Right, yeah. So is essentially, it went from 150 gold to 500 gold a piece, which they would get when they met up with him in Elturel. Camp, which when they got to it was mostly empty. Basically, the only people who were left in the camp itself were the hunters, who were hunting on the green fields and bringing meat back to those who stayed behind in the Dragon Hatchery. The rest of the cult had made their way west from the Raider camp, and had a couple days of head start on the party. So after
neglected to mention when we arrived at the camp that it wasn't just abandoned, it was on fire.
Oh yeah, the kobolds' huts in the first area of the camp were burnt down.
Which
because they stink. Because kobolds stink. They stink.
May have been a side effect of us instigating a race war.
That's true too. That could have had something to do with it. But in any case, Lucien's absence was noted, and obviously Rezmir knows. Not Rezmir. Frulam Mondoth knows that that's not great news for the cult. So they got their treasure out of there into the west, so that way it wouldn't be impeded on its journey for their ultimate goal of amassing a horde worthy of Tiamat. So, with Leovin's help and a pass without a trace spell, the party made it into the Dragon Hatchery, where they decided to sneak past the sentries, a pair of Dragclarks, who were just inside the mouth of the cave, and continued sneaking around, and ultimately, through a poor stealth check, Hagrid was discovered by guards in the guard barracks, and a rather large fight broke out. There were thunderclaps, there was deafness, there was blood, and a lot of it was Tyrannus's, as he almost got killed by the Dragclarks, who came to join the battle after a few rounds. Since the sound doesn't carry super far in the cavern because of its shape, however, those rooms were connected to the entryway where the sentries were.
Yeah, it was all pretty much on the same level, so finding the source of the noise wasn't going to be too difficult.
Right. So during the fight, the party noticed a couple of the cultists ran into an area off to the right that they couldn't see yet. So after Toni created a body, then desecrated it, of a passed out drunk cultist in what was formerly a treasure room, the party went after those enemies that had switched or that had moved into the other room, and they found Frulam Mondoth's chambers without Frulam Mondoth. The guards had gone and alerted her that there were attackers, and she made a hasty retreat. After Tyrannus did a little performance to try to convince Leovin and the cultists that Tyrannus is in fact a dragon, eventually that plan wound up kind of fizzling out, and another fight broke out.
Well, Tyrannus did a rather good job with one of them to almost completely convince him that he was a dragon, but not enough where his cohorts couldn't argue otherwise, and he was in a very confused state for a little while.
Yes. He actually started tidying up a desk in Frulam Mondoth's chambers because Tyrannus had said, I'm a dragon, this is my new office, it needs to be fitting a dragon. So he started cleaning because he was very confused with where he was in life at that time. After defeating the guards in that chamber, the party looked around a little bit. Leovin found, among other things, including like sort of evangelical pamphlets about dragons and how majestic they are. He found a map of the Sword Coast with a trail marked on the coastway and up to Neritar, where there was a little note, I believe, that said that the treasure was to be delivered north in Neritar. I can try to find that really quick. But the party also found a secret tunnel in the floor that went to another area. Oh yeah, sorry. The map had written, everything must be freighted north to Neritar. Resmir allowed us to keep some pearls, a ring, and a handful of small stones. So, after going down the passageway, the party found none other than Lengadrosa Cyanrath in a room with a large altar dedicated to Tiamat, with quite a bit of emphasis being placed on her black dragon head. Resmir herself, who is the head of the cult's activities in this area, is a half-black dragon, and she is especially infatuated with the black dragon portion of Tiamat. So Lengadrosa wasted no time trying to get his revenge on Hagrid and attacked him outright. The party jumped in to help him out, and at that point, a pair of rather burly men with abilities similar to Toni's began helping Lengadrosa out. But in the end, the party was victorious, obviously, since we've had more sessions since then. And so then actually, you know what? So this part of this recap is actually from session 8. I forgot. So in session 8, we ended at the acid trap being set off. So session 9 picked up there. So that's my bad. Okay. So yeah. So we actually started off session 9 with the party being in the room that was filled with that acid mist. There were dexterity and constitution saves made. The party took a little bit of damage, but was ultimately able to escape the chamber and found themselves in the kobold barracks. And instead of choosing to fight those kobolds, because the party was not in great shape from the last 2 battles in session 8. So
Toni definitely wanted to fight, though.
Yes, Toni definitely wanted to fight. But the party ultimately decided to sneak past those kobolds into the next area, which is a drake nursery. So there was 2 guard drakes who were being trained currently still for their duties in guarding the black dragon eggs, and as well as some kobolds that were in the area, working around. So the party fought the kobolds without knowing that the drakes were down there, and after a while, the drakes started sounding an alarm by howling. And although Leovan had already placed his spike growth trap at the bottom of the stairs in the kobold barracks, the party decided to hightail it out of there after taking care of the kobolds in Chamber 7, and found themselves in a chamber full of bats, where Tyrannus took the opportunity to speak with a bat because he's a gnome, and basically was able to, in the simplest of terms, communicate that they were friends to the bats, that they weren't there to be harmful, they were safe. So then the party continued to the north, basically, and found what is that room called again? Well, they found basically where the trash was dumped in the nursery. So it was mostly just a big trash heap, but there were glints and glimmers of metal and other precious objects in there that were interesting enough to the party for them to head into this trash dump to rummage around a little bit. And so the party, everybody in the party found some very unique items. Toni, why don't you go ahead and tell them what you found?
I found boots of the Lupin, if I'm not mistaken, and they allow me a dodge ability while raging once per round, with the following opportunity: if I beat the DC of the attacking roll, then I in turn get a counterattack and I avoid the damage that would there be dealt to me.
Yes, they're the boots of lupine agility. So, like Mike said, they give him a reaction when it's not his turn to fight things, and as long as he's raging, he can try to dodge an incoming attack, and the DC of that is set by the attack roll of the creature, and Toni has to beat. He cannot meet it. He has to beat that AC or the DC, sorry, in order to in order to dodge the attack. And then if he successfully dodges, he gets a counter attack as well as a 5-foot boost in his movement speed, giving him 40 feet of movement speed until the end of his next turn. Which is kind of where the lupine thing comes in, because wolves have a move speed of 40, and you're a totem warrior, so everything's going to be kind of, beast themed. Hagrid found a ring with a celestial bison carved in it, which is the visage of his deity, Kiri Jolith. The ring allows him to cast Guided Bolt a number of times per day, equal to half of his paladin level, rounded down. Leovan found a spark stone, which is a stone that he can druid craft into his quarterstaff, or an accepting piece of wood, essentially, that he can druid craft it in there, and it improves the fire damage of his fire spells by 1d6. So, for instance, like Produce Flame, I believe is a 1d4 for its damage, but so he rolls 1d4 and 1d6 for damage on that. And then Tyrannus found a rather curious object called a mockingbird. It's a small metal bird that can be commanded to move up to 120 feet in a turn via flying, and has the ability to cast the spell Gust of Wind once per day. Also, some other interesting features about this curious object: it can be taught new spells. It can remember up to 4 spells, and each of those spells can be used once per day. And once per day, he can attempt to try to teach it a new spell. So then, after finding those objects, the party decided to take a long rest because it seemed rather safe where they were. They were kind of tucked back in a corner on the map, and so they took a long rest. And upon waking up, they were attacked by some troglodytes, which was interesting because they smell really bad. Worse. And so the party got through that. found the meat locker of the that the cult was using, just a chamber that was naturally very, very cold in the cave system. But there really wasn't anything of any value in there, so the party moved on, and Tyrannus had the idea to use his Mockingbird's gust of wind to disperse the acid mist that was in the altar chamber, the dragon shrine, I mean, in order to get to the next area, because the party noticed that they were sort of backtracking as they were moving in their new direction. So, Toni, why don't you tell them a little bit about your animal handling debacle with the drakes on your way back through there?
So, figuring that we may be able to use the drakes that were in the process of being trained as future allies, give us some kind of advantage in dragon fighting, they're kind of dragons. I attempted, after Tyrannus found a key ring, to go into the access cage for the Drake room and feed them, bribe them, coerce them into being friendly towards us, as in, hey, we're not a threat to you, I give you food, you work with us, so on and so forth. General concept behind training animals, and failed catastrophically repeatedly to do it, so gave up on them.
So at this time, the party had kind of rendezvoused because Hagrid and Leovan had decided to try to go a different direction, but then they realized that they were backtracking even further instead of going forward, and that in order to continue the direction they were going, they would have needed Tyrannus to already clear the room with the acidic mist in it.
So, before we got to the room with the acidic mist to get it cleared, was it Leovan?
Yeah.
Conjured 4 monkeys and used
yes.
them to clear out the secondary barracks that existed.
That is true. There was some serious monkey murder going on in the kobold barracks. Yeah, that went really well for you guys with the Tyrannus had a good cloud of daggers that took out several kobolds, and then monkeys took care of quite a few as well.
And then we proceeded to the acid mist room, and before Tyrannus realized that he could use his automaton to clear it, we sent a monkey into the room full of acid mist to see what we could learn.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, poor Diddy Kong. She made her initial Constitution saving throw, but then Leovan had her explore the room for several minutes. So eventually, she succumbed to the acid mists. You can't hold your breath that long, unfortunately. So then, after the mist was cleared out, the party made it into the actual dragon hatchery itself, the room that housed the 3 black dragon eggs that the cult was guarding and hoping to hatch here. During some exploration, Toni and Leovan were attacked by some kobolds that were in a pit off to the side, who were hurling fire and glue bombs over the wall to where they heard noise, basically. And while Toni and Leovan and Hagrid, as well as the remaining monkeys, worked on the guard drakes that were in the room guarding the eggs, Tyrannus took out the kobolds that were throwing bombs. And then eventually the guard drakes were taken care of, despite the lights in the room going out for a little bit. Hagrid did eventually pull out a torch because he didn't want to fight with disadvantage. So yeah, then the party decided to take all 3 dragon eggs instead of destroying anything, and met a very strange creature that had been sort of hiding out and eating the leftovers from the guard drakes, a creature called a roper, which is kind of a tentacle monster, if you guys don't know what that is. The roper had a really cool voice that was really fun to do at the time. I was actually sick for session 9, so it was probably the least challenging thing I did with my voice that day. But unfortunately, that's gone forever. So maybe we'll see it again somewhere down the road. Maybe not. But Tyrannus was quick on his feet when thinking about how to deal with this creature, and told it about the meat locker that the kobolds were keeping, and so the roper went off that way and to gorge himself, leaving the characters by themselves in the dragon hatchery with the eggs. So taking their time and affixing an egg on a polymorphed Tyrannus in the form of a Triceratops, the party brought the 3 eggs back to Greenest, and they met with Governor Nighthill, expecting money, even though he never agreed to pay them for what they were doing. And then Greenest was very insistent on Governor Nighthill sending runners to various cities to tell them about the cult of the dragon. How effective that'll be, nobody really knows. And as well, we the people of Greenest are pretty preoccupied right now with rebuilding their town. So to spare the men to send those messages to the vast parts of the Sword Coast would be sparing quite a bit of manpower. So at that point, the party used the horses and wagon that Lucien had purchased for them while he was in Greenest before he left, as kind of a show of what the sort of benefits of working with Lucien and his group were, that they'd be taken care of essentially, and set out on the 6-day journey to Elturel, which was a very uneventful journey. And then they arrived in the city of Elturel, which is a very curious city. And what's so weird about Elturel, Toni?
There is a giant glowing orb above the keep in the city that bathes in perpetual light.
Yes, it is. It's essentially a second sun in the city of Elturel, and it casts its light across all of Elturgard. And this orb, it bathes the city in daylight all the time, so it's never nighttime in Elturel, and travelers have to sleep in inns that have the windows covered and all that sort of stuff, because the people in Elturel are used to it and live their lives by the tolls of bells throughout the day to know, what time of day it is, really. And the light also wards the city and the realm from undead, essentially, because the light is very painful to them. And yeah, that's where we left off for session 9. Did I miss anything, Mike?
Not that I can think of. Other than the fact that we were trying to find somebody in Greenest who could care for the dragon eggs, and we were told that they're a bunch of bumbling idiots and have no idea what they're doing. So we took the eggs with us to Elturel.
Well, I think that you'd be hard-pressed to find people who are trained in handling dragons.
Hey, if they can raise chickens, they can raise dragons.
Sure, except for the fact that dragons are, actually intelligent creatures.
There was... Oh, yeah, and did you... Tyrannus tried to extort more money from the mayor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that I did kind of gloss over that a little bit when I kind of covered it when I said that the party expected some money from the mayor, even though he never hired them for the job that they were doing.
No, he tried to extort money from the mayor.
Oh, he did? What did he do?
He was convincing the mayor essentially that, hey, your town has gone to shit. We have defended your city time and time again, gone and cleared out the dragon's nest. You owe us at the very least for driving away the cult of the dragon.
Oh, yeah. Another thing that we kind of skipped over was before the party left Greenest the first time to head back to the raider camp, Leovan had been staying behind to help them rebuild the town. Yeah, and so when the party had left, they initially wanted to see if anybody needed help, and everyone kept trying to steal Leovan from them, basically, to have him stay behind and help them build their houses. And Toni eventually took it upon himself to start biting people who asked for Leovan.
Hey, they got the point. We're trying to do something.
It's very true. All right, I think that covers everything for the last episode. So hopefully this is the last one of these that we need to do. But maybe next time we'll have a new guest, or we'll switch up the format a little bit just to keep things fresh. If you're gonna have to do a lost episode stream, then I guess you want to keep it entertaining, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we could try and do a quick little behind the screen stuff. If anybody cares.
I guess we'll kind of find out and see if there's any feedback at some point about what people might like better in a lost episode stream.
Yeah, but long story short, we screwed up. Computer screwed up, so we're recapping for you guys, and feel free to give us any kind of advice on how to improve, what you'd like to see happen, character development, story development. Just let us know. Reach out, drop us a line. We are open to constant improvement.
Absolutely. And remember, catch us every Sunday on Twitch, and you can follow our adventures throughout the week on YouTube. And we'll be live in about 15 minutes with this week's Dungeons and Dragons session.
All right. I got nothing else, so I guess that if you don't, Cory, that sums it up.
Nope, that's about it. Thanks for watching, guys.